Welcome to a deep dive into a literal chess heist. We're not just going to beat strong players today, we're going to completely outsmart them. Look, if you've ever felt, totally frustrated playing against opponents who just seem to counter your every single move, well, this explainer is absolutely going to change the way you look at the board. We're breaking down a legendary sequence that actually weaponizes your opponent's experience and their greed right against them.
So, ask yourself, how exactly do you beat a stronger chess player? The answer isn't always about playing objectively better or, memorizing thousands of those computer-generated lines. No, it's about psychological warfare. It's about leading them down a path where they feel 100% in control right up until the exact moment they realize they have absolutely zero escape. And to pull that off, we're diving into a very specific, frankly brilliant sequence known as the Greco trap.
Phase 1. The ultimate chess trap, fooling the experts.
Moving into Phase 2, the Italian game setup, laying the groundwork.
Okay, so the history behind our setup here is pretty fascinating. This 16th century sequence, the Gioco piano, also known as the Italian game, perfectly camouflages our devious intentions right from the very first moves. You see, most basic traps really only work on beginners who can't see one move ahead, but the brilliance of this trap, it's explicitly designed to manipulate strong players. It's actually one of the oldest recorded openings in chess. By playing this, we're basically signaling to a strong opponent, hey, we're playing a standard, traditional, respectable game. No tricks here, right? Wrong.
So, we open solidly. You push your pawn to e4, and they match with e5. You bring your knight out to attack, they defend, and then you deploy your bishop to c4. This naturally invites your opponent to bring out their own bishop in response. Everything looks completely symmetrical, perfectly standard.
But next, we play pawn to c3. Now, to the untrained eye, this looks, well, weird. It looks kind of amateurish because you've literally just blocked the natural developing square for your own knight. But listen, this is the crucial first gear of our trap. Your opponent will logically attack your e4 pawn with their knight, and here is where it gets fun. Instead of defending it, you completely ignore that threat and push your other center pawn to d4, launching a direct attack on their bishop.
Which brings us to Phase 3, setting the bait, feeding their greed. Now comes the real psychology of the heist. This is where we intentionally feed the opponent's greed to draw them in. We're about to offer them material that just looks way too good to pass up. Here's how it unfolds. After a quick pawn exchange right in the center of the board, they're going to check your king with their bishop. It feels like a super strong, aggressive move for them, but you just simply block that check with your knight. And by doing this, you're intentionally leaving your center pawn totally undefended.
This right here brilliantly illustrates the psychological disconnect we're creating on the board. Just look at the difference between what they see versus what we see. Your opponent thinks they're snagging a free pawn and pulling off this great double attack on your blocking knight. They think you've blundered. But what we see? An inescapable mating net being woven. We actively want them to capture that pawn.
So, when they take the bait, when they take the pawn and set up this menacing double attack on your pinned knight, what do? You ignore the attack. Literally, completely ignore their double attack and just simply castle your king to safety. By refusing to defend your pieces, you're drawing them so much deeper into the snare. You're making them feel like you're just scrambling to survive.
All right, now they have a choice on how to capture your pinned knight. Do they use their bishop, or do they use their knight? Remember, we're targeting strong players here. And a strong player, they do not want to lose their bishop pair. That's a very well-known positional advantage. So, they will almost invariably capture your knight with their knight. You recapture, and suddenly, boom, their bishop is looking directly at your rook in the corner. And that brings us to the absolute masterpiece of the trap. Instead of saving your rook, which is under direct, immediate threat, you move your bishop to a3. You have just left your rook completely defenseless. To your opponent, it looks like you're just flailing around, trying to develop a piece while dropping a massive amount of material.
But the crucial point here is human nature. 90% of people are going to get totally blinded by greed right here. They see a free rook sitting on a1 and their eyes just light up. They take it without a second thought. Only a tiny fraction sense the danger. But honestly, once they take that rook, the game is already over.
Phase 4. Springing the trap. The jaws snap shut.
The exact moment they take that rook on a1, the bait is officially swallowed. You immediately bring your remaining active rook to e1, delivering an absolutely devastating check to their king. And just like that,
The illusion of their dominance shatters into a million pieces. Look at the board. Their king literally has 0 safe squares to move to, not a single one.
Because their king is stuck, they are forced to block the check with their knight. And you don't hesitate. You ruthlessly capture that blocking knight with your rook. Now, you might be wondering, why can't they just take your rook back? Well, remember that brilliant bishop you moved to a3 earlier? Yep, it's protecting your rook. And because of that, their king is finally forced to awkwardly flee to the f8 square.
And now for phase 5, securing the checkmate, the inevitable doom. We are firmly in the end game of our heist now. The trap is sprung, the doors are locked, and every single choice they make from here on out leads to a spectacular defeat. With their king pushed to f8, you simply capture their adjacent pawn with your rook, delivering yet another brutal check. By taking this pawn, you're just tearing open the defenses around their king and handing them a brutal ultimatum.
Despite technically having a material advantage from taking your rook earlier, just look at how completely hopeless their situation is. They're left with 3 terrible choices: moving the king to g8, retreating the king back to e8, or desperately sacrificing their queen to stop the attack. Let's break down what happens with each one.
Option 1. If they try to slide the king into the corner to g8, the game is instantly over. You deliver a crushing checkmate with your rook. The king is completely trapped behind its own pieces. Done.
Okay, what about option 2? What if they try to run back to the center, retreating the king to e8? Well, in this case, their king's position is hopelessly stretched. This allows you to bring your powerful queen directly into the middle of the board. The result? A guaranteed, completely unavoidable checkmate.
And finally, option 3. What if they actually see the mating net and try to survive by giving up their queen, sacrificing it for your attacking rook? Well, you just simply capture their queen, and on the very next move, you scoop up their stranded bishop on a1. You're now vastly ahead in both material and positional dominance, which allows you to easily coast to victory.
It perfectly proves the old adage: by feeding their greed, you can ensnare even the strongest players in your web. The Greco trap brilliantly illustrates how giving up material, a pawn, a knight, even a full rook, can yield a massive psychological and positional advantage if you know exactly how your opponent's mind works.
You've just learned a 16th century secret weapon that literally weaponizes the very experience and confidence of strong chess players right against them. The pieces are in place, the psychology is sound, and the trap is set. So the only question left is, who are you going to use it on first?